Good Thursday morning, and welcome to Ice Age TV, the internal combustion engine age YouTube channel that talks about all my cars and trucks, SUVs, the motorcycles, the dogs, the kid, life, the water, the pond, the weather. Hey, good Thursday morning there on the first week of 2024 that is going by like everything else so quickly. And hey, thanks for everybody that tunes into my channel and watches my morning conversation as I want to share my ideas and views and thoughts that I only can hope radiate back to you. And wow, I've got my Indian gear. You know, I have so much Indian paraphernalia. I mean, I really do. It's just incredible how the love of the Indian came to me in 2019. I do have Indian blood in me. Believe it or not, my mother's mother had a lot of Indian in her. So I am an Indian individual, believe it or not. One of my best friends, Tim out there, if you listen, he's Indian. So it's pretty cool. And we like the Indians, or the Indians here. What's the old saying? There's an Indian behind every tree. Right. So anyways, what's going on today on the Ice Age TV? Comments, not really comments, commentary, is that what I should say, as I get the day. And here's a Ford Lightning truck, which is rarely in front of my house. And the wife's out of town, and you know the driveway is always kind of a challenge, especially with my kid. It's just the little things that she does. She parks her truck on the grass, and then if she's driving the Mustang, she'll park it over here. She just isn't that efficient in my world on how you got to park the cars in the driveway. And then she'll park her car back here, and I'm just like, you're going to run into a car, you're going to back into a car. And so many years ago, this was actually the driveway. So I actually redesigned it. So this here was originally the parking in front of my house. And there's the original driveway, if you can even kind of see it, that went all the way down to the road, because back when this was a real farmhouse, farmland, there wasn't a road here. The road was down there. And I actually had my mailbox on the main road, and it was a rural route box. It wasn't like a physical street address like today. It was more of a rural route box, if you can understand that. So over the years, I kind of re-engineered the driveway, and not really thinking about how one day I'd have so many daggone vehicles that it would be challenging just to park cars in the front. But it's just the little things. And you hear me say the little things. Well, guess what? The Monday conversations was no conversations because I had too many family things going on. Tuesday was the America, and Wednesday was the muscle, and Thursday is the little conversations. And I thought, boy, that could really be the appropriate theme for this week's conversations, because if you're my age, you witness the little vehicles coming to our country. Yes. We had such big vehicles. If you look at the vehicles back in the 50s and 60s, even the 70s, they were such big vehicles. But the little vehicles started showing up from the Japanese. The Honda, I can still remember my dad's friend that had to be 6'6". And I remember him buying a Honda Civic, and the thing looked like a go-kart on wheels with a canopy on it. And come on, bumpers, got to get back here. And so I just remember this big guy. And tires, I'm sure anybody's my age, those tires couldn't have been any bigger than a real golf cart. Golf cart, or I should say a go-kart wheel. It was puny. But that was it's incredible how things play out in life. Things happen, and then things create something from the happenings. And what I mean by that is the fuel crisis, the oil embargo, the Middle East playing games with our country about withholding oil to us to get gas to us, that created the gas shortage, which in turn created the opportunity for the smaller little car to kind of get some attention and start gaining traction and popularity here, because those little cars were more fuel efficient because they were smaller cars. They had little 4-cylinder motors in them versus the American boys had all these big V8s. Come on, Pops, what's going on? This is where it all goes south. Come on back. Come on, Scout. Where are you? I don't know what the heck they're doing. Come on, Scout. Get in the office. Come on, leave him alone. Let's go. Come on. So So the little guy, which is just so incredible how Toyota was the little guy. If you go back to '60s and '70s, but yet Toyota today is the biggest guy. Toyota is the biggest producer and seller worldwide of cars. And so, but the whole point there is the gas shortage truly created a huge opportunity for the likes of Honda, Toyota, Mazda to get into the U.S. Car chain supply and sales. Come on, here we go. This is just never-ending challenges. As me, and I already figured out how to do this a little better. Oh, your collar's gone. Come on, get up there. Come on, get up there. Nope. Get up there. Can I get up there? Get up there. You just calm down. Calm down. Stop it. So anyways, lights, camera, action. So the conversations this week have all been about the American muscle, the American car, where this country came from. But the gas crisis, with our reliance on the Middle East for oil, opened the door for the little guy to get into this country, in which we now know. I mean, come on, Nissan. I didn't even bring up. Did I bring up Datsun? Back in the day, it was Datsun. And for me, being a little kid, I was I just really liked the little cars. I loved that Toyota Celica GT green, which my dad bought used back in 1973 or 74. And my brother, he was just kind of the teenage punk that always was borderline in trouble. My older brother, he always will tell the stories about my dad buying that 1973 Toyota Celica GT stick shift. And he would, unbeknownst to my dad, cut out at school in the middle of the day. My dad used to drive the car over to the BART. If you're a San Francisco person, you know the Bay Area Rapid Transit is the abbreviation for BART. And my dad used to drive the car there, and then he would take that into the city, San Francisco, where he worked. And unbeknownst to my dad, my brother would cut out of school and obviously had a second key. He would go over to the parking lot, and he would take the car and then go joyride it around with his friends all day and do their funny things in it. And then he would drive it back and try to get the car within reason of where my dad parked it. And so my brother got away with that quite a lot. And apparently my dad really didn't figure that out until what he says one day he came out and the car was warm and the gas was very low. And he doesn't remember that. So then he eventually caught on to what my brother was doing. But that's my brother, what he did to my dad's car is unbelievable. That 1970 Pontiac Le Mans, my first purchase of a brand new car my dad ever had. My brother, by 1975 or 70, I think it was like 75, had turned that thing into the Dukes of Hazzard car. He was taking my dad's car out, unbeknownst to him, and going through the apple orchards and going up through the back hills of the California, that Walnut Creek, Lafayette area, Orinda, Moraga area. He's out there dirt tracking my dad's Pontiac Le Mans. And the way we found that all out is because my dad is having some great friend that he hasn't seen for so many years. I mean, I'll never forget to this day. This is no lie about my... and here's the thing. It's just the little things in life. If you're a parent, you can so relate with having a child. Or if you're married, it's just the little things. The little things that just add up over time that truly just eventually, I think you just lose it. So anyways, this is just stories to be told that I like to share all my antics. If you think you think I'm goofy, wait till you meet my brother. But no, my brother's by no means as crazy and wild as I am. But he's a funny guy, and he's, for the most part, deaf. He's 85% deaf because he has no hearing in his left ear. And so, anyways, dad's friend, the whole family comes over to the house, and they brought their RV. And I'll never forget my brother coming into the house as we're all in the living room, and he takes my dad aside for a private conversation. And you hear my dad be like, "What?" My dad's kind of like, "What?" And so my dad comes in the room and shares with David, that's my brother's name, has got his car stuck somewhere off the road, and he needs help getting it back home. And my dad's friend has a nice RV, and he's like, well, look, let me take my RV up the road, and I got some chains, and we'll try to pull them out. So here begins the adventure. We get in this RV, the whole family, not really, but I mean, my sisters and the women all stayed back, but the guys all jump in the RV, Dad, my brother, his son, even the dog, and we're all trekking along, and my brother says, okay, take a turn off to this dirt road here. We start driving down this dirt road, and I mean, we're going on this dirt road. Now we're kind of going up the side of a mountain. I'm not embellishing here. We're going for miles and miles. And so we finally get to the top of this, out there, it's mountains, hills, we were calling. This is like the movies. We get out on top of this hill, mountain, and my brother walks us over to basically a ravine where the car is like at least 100 yards down the ravine. I'm not embellishing. And so my dad's just looking at my brother like, what were you even thinking of doing? This is not, he's not driving around in some old Jeep. This is a 2-wheel drive car. So to make a long story short, it took 2 tow trucks to retrieve that car to bring it back home. Yeah, so my brother, I don't know what it was. So it started very young in my family with the addictions to the cars, but my brother's always been the one that's always just abused the hell out of the cars. Oh, he used to get me so angry. He was a young kid. He'd take the Toyota Celica out and he would just trash it. Then I ended up cleaning it, vacuuming it out, washing it. This is just when I'm like 11 years old, 12 years old. And then every car thereafter, my brother would get in it, and he'd go do something to it, and something would happen. My brother would be like, well, at least I didn't sink Dad's Chevy truck in a river. Well, it was a stream for the record. Yeah, that's a whole other story. I probably told that before as well. So anyways, off the family antics of everybody has a story of the little things that you grew up with. So back to the little things. So when little things that we own, so you're saying little things you own, dude? You have a lot of things. You don't have little things. You have big things. Right. And that's the point of the conversation this morning, is it's incredible how we went through the 50s, 60s, 70s, where the cars and trucks and everything else were so big. But then we started transitioning into little vehicles. And as I just said, I think that the Honda, the Toyota, the Mazda, I think that forced the big three, which is it the big three anymore? I mean, it's not really the big three. If you look at the worldwide economics of cars, it's the little three, but it's not even the big three anymore because Ford and GM are the big two, but now Chrysler, Dodge, Ram, they're Stellantis. That's a Peugeot automotive group. So I don't know if you can even call them the big three anymore per se, but you can because they're the dominant domestic side manufacturers here in this country. So the foreign cars then really started pushing and forcing the hand for the domestic guys to reevaluate how they're going to continue to market their products because the governing bodies were getting much more strict on the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, was getting more strict on the carbon dioxide that's coming out of these carbon monoxide, dioxide, the CO2, all coming out of these tailpipes of these vehicles, and they're getting more stringent on the fuel economy, and so it's forcing the big guys to make littler vehicles. And who doesn't remember the K car? I mean, that thing was hideous. Who doesn't remember like the '78 Mustang? If I remember right, that thing was hideous. Who doesn't remember talked about yesterday, the Chrysler Shelby Daytona, car that was like a Horizon vehicle. Look at there's just a list of cars that if you drive down the road and you see like the 80s cars, they're such smaller vehicles than what you see today. I mean, these vehicles are just massive compared to what the vehicles were in that era because the manufacturers were forced to make littler vehicles to accommodate, to get better fuel mileage. That was the whole goal, is they had to figure out how to get weight out of the vehicles and put a smaller motor in the vehicle that could actually pull the vehicle. So they were forced to downsize and make littler vehicles. If you look at 1978 Chevy truck, 1981 Chevy truck, 84, 85, and you get the likes of the new Chevy Colorado or the GMC Canyon or even borderline the Ford Ranger truck. Those trucks are just about the same size as what was really in the late 70s, the trucks, the full-size trucks. It's incredible on how, if you put a 1978, 80, 84, 85 Chevy truck up against, even to the degree, this Gladiator, you would be like, wow, this thing is just about as big as that truck was. And that was considered the big full-size truck. So as time has progressed, it's kind of now gone a whole different direction, because we truly went through the late 70s, 80s, even into the 90s of all the vehicles really being downsized, and then the engines being detuned and downsized. And that's where the love of the V8 motor totally was taken away from the muscle heads, because the four-cylinder motors showed up and the V6 motors showed up, which people just hated and somebody felt were junk, which they were. I mean, anyone remember those four-cylinder engines that came out? The Americans were competing against Honda and Toyota, and Ford would build a four-cylinder engine. It was junk. I mean, truly junk. GM's motor, junk. They just didn't last. And I'm sure some today will say, yeah, they still are junk, Mr. Iceman. Well, yeah, I guess they are. A lot of people claim that all this power being forced into these V6s and four cylinders, twin turbo setup, they're cool motors because they get you down the road pretty well. But so many believe that the day of the reckoning of those things will come sooner than later. So many believe that those motors are just going to be catastrophic by the time they get 80 to 100,000 miles. So most people don't believe these new four-cylinder V6 motors can really take what the V8 motor can take, which, I mean, I'm sure it's all up for debate. So once again, the whole car market became littler to the consumer, to what you could buy, and that really did, I'm sure, disappoint a lot of the. I mean, I can just remember my dad's 1975 or 76 Cadillac Eldorado. That thing was a boat. It was a tank. But then you go to the 80s, and I remember my dad buying my mother a 1985 Cadillac Eldorado Berlitz package, and that thing was dinky in comparison to what the 70s. I mean, literally, the car was borderline half the size. And then GM went on this path of trying to make a V8 motor into a V8 gas motor into a V8 diesel. Oh my gosh! Does anybody remember those junk GM diesel motors? And it was all about trying to get the fuel economy, not so much the emissions, more at the fuel economy, because some of these manufacturers are forced to build junk vehicles to meet the EPA guidelines in the fleet of their vehicles. I mean, that's just a running joke of any major automotive manufacturer. They're forced to build very small vehicles, little vehicles that get these stupid mileage, but really are just throwaway vehicles to help their average on their whole fleet of vehicles to bring down the EPA guidelines. Now, Ford is creative. I don't think people think this through. Ford pretty much abandoned the whole car market besides the Ford Mustang. And if you think it through, that was kind of smart on their behalf, because when you get into these SUVs and you get in these trucks, they're categorized differently. So it's a different guideline on overall fleet fuel mileage for EPA standards. And so if you think about it, Ford really only has, per se, the Mustang, but not the electric vehicle. That's all another thing people don't understand is, I've talked about this numerous times, Ford and General Motors and Chrysler Dodge, they have been paying Elon Musk hundreds of millions of dollars a year on carbon footprint, that's what I call it, carbon tax credits, because their fleet isn't meeting the governing body's guidelines as quickly as they should be. So they buy Elon Musk tax credits because his vehicles are net zero emissions, but they're not really carbon free vehicles because it took carbon footprint to make them. But that gets, it gets heavy and deep. But the whole point is, Ford and all these other manufacturers have had to pay Elon Musk a lot of money over the years to escape not paying the government more monies for penalties of not having their fleet of vehicles under those guidelines of the EPA that they raise every so many years to get the manufacturers more in line to have cleaner burning, cleaner, more efficient vehicles. And so for Ford, a lot of people can call out Ford for investing billions of dollars in the electric side, but the thing is, electric vehicles now are helping them meet these stringent guidelines by the governing bodies, and so it brings down the reality that they're not paying Elon Musk. So sure, they're going to take $1 billion, $2 billion, whatever it is, loss. But if they weren't on the electric vehicle path, maybe they're paying $500 million, $800 million, maybe even $1 billion to Elon Musk to buy his tax credits, so they're not having to pay the government more. The government's, if you don't pay Elon, you pay the government more money. So I've said it so many times. Elon Musk, the guy is a magician. The guy knows how to take money from people. He knows how to take money from governing bodies. Think it through. So instead of government getting the money to them, they would say, here's the deal. If you give it to Elon Musk, you're going to only pay $500 million. If you go to us, you're going to pay $700 million. I mean, so where are you going to put your money? Because you know as well as I do, it's so self-defeating that you're enriching a competitor of yours in so many ways by giving him your money to try to be on the level playing field of all the green agenda. So once again, for Elon Musk, the guy's a genius in the aspect that he saw when he started Tesla, that little company he started, that the green agenda would be the biggest, most dominant, biggest thing ever as time progressed. And his little efforts, which it was big efforts, but his little true beginnings have rewarded him to be the richest man in the world, I guess. I think he's the richest man in the world. And somebody can correct me on that, but I think he is, or just this country that they categorize that. So it's all debatable there. So, but the thing is, for the manufacturers today, if we kind of now fast forward as I get my coffee here, you can check out the 37 Raptor on the week of conversations of American made, all about the muscle, and then we have the little conversations, and who wants to feel little? I mean, anybody here, that's one thing about life, psychologically. Do you want to feel like you're little? You don't. I mean, nobody wants to. Everyone wants to feel they're strong, they're supported, they've got a lot of love around them, they've got a lot of people that care about them. I mean, that goes a long way, just the little things. But now, when people start making little derogatory statements, that has a big impact. And it's very unfortunate we live in a society that others are so selfish themselves that they have to make little comments that really create bigger problems in the end. But going to where we are today, it's pretty incredible on how we went through the little transition. We went through the big transition of 50s, 60s, kind of 70s. Then we really went through the little transition of the 80s and 90s. And into the 2000 years, that started kind of to change. Because the 2000 years really we started to see the power of these little engines start to really come to life. We started to see the vehicles become bigger. So from their little beginnings started to become the bigger beginnings. Because if you remember the 1985 or 88 Dodge Challenger Mitsubishi edition, that was a small car. That would have been in so many ways so close to this Ford Mustang Mach-E. And that's the reason I kind of thought about this morning that the little conversations are so appropriate, because I think that we're transitioning back into little. The challenge now is, as we all know, is these electric batteries are very heavy. And so to compensate for the batteries, in so many ways, they got to make this vehicle smaller. And I only wish my Ford Mustang was here next to it to kind of show you today's gas engine versus the battery-powered engine, or I should say the battery-powered vehicle. And even for me, when I drive down the road, that car looks small. And even for me, I'm always kind of like, wow, that's hard to believe. Because when I drive that car, it doesn't necessarily feel small, but it is small. You look at the Ford F-150 truck, now that truck's just as big as the other F-150 trucks, but it has to be, because it has to have that big battery pack under it to enable it to be able to go anywhere and do a lot. So it needs to be a big footprint. But in the car side, I think if you look at the Tesla 3, I mean the Model 3, I think it's very popular. And so I was at Acura the other day, where Tesla is still getting the $7,500 tax credit because their batteries are more than 40%, I guess, stateside put together or whatever. So, the new governing body guidelines by Joe Biden is if you have a battery powered car, it has 40% or less. If it's basically more Chinese than outside of Chinese products, then you're not going to qualify for the full tax credit, or you may not even get the tax credit. So if you have a car that has more than 40% of more of non-China product, then you receive the full tax credit. So apparently the Model 3, the Model X, Model Y, those all do qualify under the new guidelines for the full tax credits. And it's $3,500 or $7,500, depending on what vehicle it is. And so there's a few variables there. But GM has just announced that they're going to match on their own the $7,500 credit off of any of their vehicles, even though their vehicles don't qualify for the actual tax credit. GM's getting creative, and they're just going to go ahead and give you $7,500 off the vehicle like you're getting from the government anyways to stay competitive in the market. Wonder what it's going to do to the bottom line on GM on that. I mean, because they make it sound like when I go to these dealers and buy these electric vehicles, when I was buying them, the word was there's little to no margins or money in these electric vehicles. They're extremely expensive, and for the dealership, there just isn't a lot there. There's not a lot of money in the car to play with to discount it because they're so extremely expensive. And that's one thing. Is that one little thing of many things that add up for you as an individual? Go look at an electric vehicle, and that's the first thing that kind of turns you off, and you see that you're going to be at $55,000 for an electric vehicle, and then you step back and think I can buy a really nice other car for maybe 45. It's maybe 10 grand less, and it's every bit of what that is. And you're gonna buy. I mean, you're gonna spend $10,000 in gas the next 2-3 years. I can't see it. I mean, I can see you probably spending, 5, 6, 7, but then you're at the mercy of the electric vehicle challenges, and which that's a conversation we've had a gazillion times here on my channel. So now, get in here in the garage. It's really cold out here. My hands are freezing. I mean, I'm not lying about that. And get in here, and what's happened to the motorcycle industry? I mean, the motorcycle industry, I don't know if you really can relate to them, because it seems to me like they've always kind of been, the two-wheel ride in so many ways has always been kind of insulated from all of the EPA guidelines per se. Don't get me wrong. They still have to have this, but I didn't really witness per se like the motorcycles got smaller. I'd have to say, for sure, the motorcycles have gotten bigger engines, and that's. But here's the thing, too, though, on the little conversations, it's the little things that I think drive us nuts with these new cars and technology. Yesterday, I got the vehicle all cleaned up, as you can see. Got my Ice Age TV stickers, redid the sticker, the Harley sticker. My daughter wants the German Shepherd, wants the AWE exhaust, the KTM. We have the pipe on the back. You gotta make. It's just little things that you start to personalize the vehicle with. But I think everybody here can say that every vehicle I've ever owned, there's always some little flaw that just bugs you. Who doesn't have that? I mean, if anybody here is the real car enthusiast, I guarantee everybody can say, yeah, I love the car, but there's just one little thing that just kind of bugs me. And for me, I've talked about it many times. The Dodge Challenger over there, that seating in that car is phenomenal. It is so comfortable. It is so me. When I get in the Mustang, I'm drinking my coffee. Get in the Mustang, it's not the same. It just isn't. The seat is not as comfortable. The body posture, and that's what I think separates a lot of the Mopar guys from the Mustangs. Is because if you're a guy that's really been riding around years and years, and that Dodge Challenger, it is such a comfortable, really nice setup. You jump out of that and jump in this. This is totally different. And I've talked about it many times and how this is littler. This car is littler than the Challenger. If I sit inside the car and reach across with my arm, I can touch the other side of that car. And that car there, I cannot. I think the running joke of everybody seeing these Mustangs crash is because it has a littler suspension chassis. The tire, the wheel to wheel here length versus the wheel to wheel length on this car. So it makes it a shorter chassis. So it's much more easy for this thing to spin out. I don't think people really connect the dots on why the Mustangs are the more dominant car that wipe themselves out. It's just because it's a shorter, I think it's a shorter wheelbase. Not saying it doesn't happen to Dodge Challengers, or is it just the Ford Mustang people don't know how to drive the car, or is it, for the record, how many more Mustangs are in the market versus Dodge Challenger? I mean, so there's a lot of variables there, but it's all about the chassis. And that's what I talked about on my love of the Indian product that really drove me away from the Harley Davidson product was that it's a littler setup. The foot controls, the seating, the handlebars, it's more cramped. It's a shorter wheelbase. I was trying to say wheelbase. I finally figured it out. So yeah, shorter wheelbase on the Mustang versus the Challenger. So on the Harley, instantly when I rode the Indian motorcycle, the first thing I noticed, it was a bigger footprint for my body to sit in the seat and for my legs to stretch out, my arms to stretch out. And then I was taken back that even though this has a littler rear tire, that this would ride better. Because I really figured a littler rear tire in that motorcycle there would maybe make it not as comfortable. So on the Harley side, it has a bigger rear tire, and it makes the bike actually, in my eyes, not as comfortable as that Indian does as you go down the highway. Now, this is the brand new CVO model that's come out, and they've refreshed it and redone it, and I think they've done a great job, and it definitely does. They've got smart. They got rid of the 21-inch front tire that, in so many ways, didn't let the bike handle that great. They got smart, and they just made little changes, like they did the inverted forks, different tire. They did the bigger motor. They did the different type of handlebars. And then they did the infotainment center. But that's the little things that really, I think, really bug so many today. They don't want all that. That's why I think the Breakout, even my daughter's Lowrider ST, those are such cool bikes because they're so simple. But you go to this here, and you're always fighting the technology. Who here just doesn't get irritated as all get out when you get in your car and your phone doesn't connect to your device, to your car? And then you're driving down the road, and you're fighting your phone, and you're fighting the vehicle to try to get connectivity. Somebody calls you on the phone, you're hands-free driving, and and then you lose the hands-free. Then you're having to diddle with your phone, which technically you're not supposed to be, using your phone as you drive down the road. On who enforces those laws as you drive down the road every day and see everybody get? Does that irritate? Is that the little thing that irritates the hell out of you when a guy's in a left-hand lane and it's 70-mile-per-hour speed limit? The guy's doing 55 or 60 miles an hour, and they're sitting there texting on their phone. I mean, do you just literally want to get out of your car and go, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get over, get off the freaking road. Just move the hell over. Just move over. But no, I can do that. Who doesn't know that? So we can talk about the little details. And that's the next thing that I think that we all kind of get caught up in is we start to look at these cars. And that's where people start getting separated on the quality and the build. And this is the thing. I mean, I've heard it so many times in the Dodge forums. I've heard it so many times on the Ford Mustang forums. It's the body lines. You'll have the guy, I mean, I still remember being in the Dodge forum for so many years, and a guy that owned Porsches decides to get a Hellcat. And then he's on the forum, and it's even in the Mustang side too. Then as a forum, he's going, I'm really looking at this Dodge Challenger, and I'm just really taken back on how the paint really has a lot of orange peel in it. I'm looking at my Dodge Challenger. I'm noticing that the lines just don't really line up on the doors, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, dude, you had a Porsche. You had a Porsche 911 Turbo, $150,000 artwork from Germany, and you think you're going to buy a $70,000 American-built car that's built in the masses, and you think the lines are going to line up? Like, where are you, man? What? You need to go to Germany, dude. And I'm blown away you give up your 911 Turbo for a freaking American. I mean, for me, it's like, wow. Are you serious? What is going on with you, dude? I wouldn't do that. I'd have kept my 911, and then I would have bought that. If I couldn't have done that, I wouldn't have done it. No way. So same thing with the Mustang. People would get on there, and they start getting irritated. It's just the little things. That the door jamb just doesn't line up correctly. Or like here, this whole back spoiler is all scratched from the cleanup department, having no clue how to clean a gloss black plastic basically, finish. And yeah, it's all scratched up. It's just the little things that start to really make you eventually just lose it, right? Is that kind of how we operate? Even the Ford Bronco. Even for me, I just about didn't buy one because I was hearing these stories of people's 2.7 motors drop the valve into the cylinder. Apparently there was a bad valve seat, or the clip or whatever holds in the valve. And numerous people started having these valves just pop, drop in cylinder, and catastrophic engine failure. And then you're out of luck because this is during the pandemic. And after the pandemic, and they couldn't get a motor rebuilt. I mean, just tons of stories that those little stories, I'm sure, had a lot of people cancel their orders. Even I questioned me buying my first Bronco for that reason. And then you go back over here to it's just the little things that catch your eye that you're like, wow. So like for me, this 1970s retro gold rush, this is so California. Because this is where I was. I was a kid. I was in California. This was such, in my view, the West Coast car because of the color. So that instantly got me very interested in this vehicle because it's just a unique color. But then you go to the hood pins. It's just this little thing here. That is so cool. When the dual snorkel came out for the red-eye package versus the single snorkel, a lot of people didn't like that. They called it the booger nose front end. You have dual noses up front. I think that looks really cool, but a lot of people are so used to seeing just a one single narrow one here, but then you have the Dodge Demon. It was really cool. That has just a whole one cutout. It's just that little thing that sets off the car that makes you think, wow, that is really cool, or you're the person like, no, not so much. And then how they do the badging on the car. Just that little SRT. And over here, Dodge went the extra mile to say this is the red eye. And this actually has a red eye in the Dodge Hellcat emblem, which that's really cool. You can go inside. So it's all the little things. You go over here to the Dodge, go over here to the Ford Mustang, Dark Horse, and you can start kind of looking at it. And it's too bad my other Mustang wasn't side by side, because then we could kind of start looking at it. And what's really different from the GT to Dark Horse? Well, the first thing is you got a Dark Horse emblem. Second thing is you have the Dark Horse stripe package. You still have the same vent aggressive look. Surprised on the Dark Horse, they didn't get a little more creative in that hood. Down below, this is so new to me, even looking at these cars, I think it's pretty much the same on that. But then you go to the profile of the car, and since this has the Dark Horse handling package, this car sits a little lower, has different tires and wheels, so it gives a little bit more of a performance look. The rear spoiler, it's a different look from the GT package. If you don't get the Dark Horse handling package, the rear spoiler looks the same as the GT. And that's what my complaint was. The one I ordered, it looked like a GT Mustang, and I'm paying stupid money for a Dark Horse. Now, some people say that the 500 horsepower 5.0 Coyote motor is a little more built motors. They're saying, hey, man, you don't realize this, but this has a little stronger crank in it. They've done a few more things internally on that motor to make it so you can even do more with it, which I'm going to do that. I'm going to put a Whipple supercharger on the vehicle. I'm going to get my coffee here as I continue to walk around and share my things. But this is the thing that drove me away from Harley back in 2019. And the Indian product was, I just really felt like the Indian had just the little things that really made me feel that were better than the Harley. And as I mentioned, the way I sat on it, more room, the way the engine sounds, that 116 Thunderstroke motor is so nice. I mean, it sounds like a sewing machine going down the road. The Harleys are just known for the going down the road, and you hear the lifters, the valves. In some ways, you feel like the damn motor, the whole top end of the Harley bike is going to come apart. Now, the 117, I don't feel that as much. The 117 is my favorite motor. The 114, they're nice, not a big fan. I think 117 is always going to be the motor sought after more so in the future years. I think that's just a really good, strong motor. It's 121. We don't know yet. That's got, it's going to take some time to really start hearing a lot of people out there using them. And it's just little things. I still want to put my exhaust on. I've been so busy doing other things that you guys probably know. If you watch my channel, Another Adventure, if you're watching that, but I got to get that exhaust. It's just a little thing of changing out that exhaust that will make that motorcycle much more fun. Just like me changing out this exhaust on this Bronco, it made my daughter just so much more like, wow, this is so nice. Even to the point that my daughter, when I first brought home this Vapor Blue GT Mustang, if you watch my channel, you'll see I drove over to Coons Baltimore Ford to trade that white Mustang GT for this Mustang GT. And at the last minute, I didn't do it. I really felt like my daughter would be upset because the car didn't have the same personality as that white GT did. And I thought, you know what, maybe I'll just take this car for myself and make this the dark horse replacement, and I'm going to mod it, which I did mod it. If you look at it here, I put the Steeda lowering springs on it. And let's walk up front here to kind of see the front end here and to see if it really is that much different, which it really isn't. I like it has adaptive cruise control. I think it has open air on the bottom. I'll kind of look at that again. But it's really, you know, you'd have a hard time. A lot of people have actually come up to me and said, it's just a dark horse. I could put a dark horse badge on this car. For average person, they would say it's a dark horse. So I did a few things to it, but just doing the little things I did by lowering the car, didn't change out the tire wheels, and by putting a shorty shifter in it, and by putting a different exhaust on it, it really changed my daughter's attitude, where so now, this is no lie, this is her favorite Mustang. So she totally did a 180 on me because this car is so noisy. She loves the noise. Oh gosh. So the little things. So the kid wanted to have a tattoo. My daughter's wanted to have a tattoo for 10 years, 5 years. Who the heck knows? I get in the office. My hands are freezing. Been walking around. You got to get upstairs and kind of get the video to eventually come to an end, because I'm sure a lot of people are like, yeah, man, come to an end. Do you want it to end? We can make it end. So, and the dogs sound like they're behaving. Scary to think of what's taking place upstairs. But anyways, yeah, the kid has been begging to get a tattoo. And what is she going to do, right? So finally the kid last night goes and gets a tattoo. And what would you think she'd get a tattoo of? And so I stayed very mum on it. Wife doesn't even know. So for anybody out there that knows the family, I think some people in the family watch my videos. I'll be amazed if the wife isn't calling or texting going, the kid got a tattoo. I'll be amazed. The wife's like, you let the kid get a tattoo? I'm like, the kids can go off to war. She can make her own decisions. Tell me, in my life, if you're of age to go fight for the war and sacrifice yourself, then you should have the right to do whatever 19, 20, 21-year-old individual should be able to do too. It doesn't make any sense to me. Go to war, sacrifice yourself. But then when it comes to the guidelines and laws of the states you live in, if you're 18, you're still just a kid. You don't know what to do. And there's 21-year-old, 23-year-olds out there that are more incompetent and not as adult as 18-year-olds out there. People know that stuff. It's just about who you are. So the kid comes home last night. It's just the little things, right? So I'm kind of visualizing for my kid, she's going to get a nice little tattoo. And I was already like, you're not putting one down there or this or there. I was like, don't be doing that stuff. So she's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, okay, don't be naming it Bob. Don't name it your boyfriend. Don't do that either. So my kid comes home, and I'm expecting to see this nice little, she's kind of giving me some ideas, this nice little tattoo. And here you go. I got to find my pictures here. The moment of little, okay? So let's see here. And here it is. Once that camera kind of maybe zooms in, can it do it? That's something. My camera doesn't want to adjust. That's so bad. Why is that? What do you think's going on? How do I get it to do it? So, there you go. So there it is. There's the little tattoo. Can you see what it is? It's a piston. Well, hibiscus flowers around it. Her favorite flower of my father and her. And she's got a piston. I wonder who had that influence in her life. Is that a little tattoo? Yeah. So, yeah. I wonder who the kid is like, right? Wow. Kid, my daughter is such the ice age person. And she just isn't into all this little technology stuff. She hates it. And she just hates I'll tell you straight up, she hates electric vehicles. My daughter wants nothing to do with electric vehicles. She doesn't. She does. So anybody out there that thinks that's kind of rude or aggressive, I'm just telling you right now. If I was to tell my daughter, if I'm selling all the cars, you drive the Mustang Mach-E electric, she'd be like, nope. She'd be like, I ain't doing it. I'm like, no, Dad. I mean, I can guarantee it would be like, yeah. See, so, all right, so a little conversation. So continue on. So then it goes into the times, so, the state of times. And I think to myself, it's so incredible how we all just witnessed through the pandemic of the little things that you couldn't do, or was it a lot of things? Does anybody remember you could run to the store and you were limited to what you could buy? Does anybody remember all this stuff? Does anybody remember people hoarding all the water and all the paper towels and all the toilet tissues? Anybody remember all this? But you were told that no, you can only have one or two packages, and you were literally told you could only have little of this, little of that. And then the concern was that with the pandemic and everything shut down, that you'd have challenges of getting food and fuel. And does everybody remember all this stuff that was on TV 24/7 a day? And then we knew little to nothing about what this virus was. Does everybody remember that? I mean, that was radical stuff. That was very concerning times. And then for so many that lost their jobs, they had little or nothing to live on. And then the government stepped in and started helping and paying people that had been laid off. And then the companies that then applied for the payroll protection because they had little monies to pay their employees because of everything been shut down. So it was just the little things too. And then you had little. I mean, in some ways, you had little control of what you could or couldn't do. In many states, if you weren't an essential business, you could not operate. You couldn't open. And there was little you could do to do that. So you remember the gym guy in Jersey that was on TV a lot that was not following the New Jersey's guidelines on opening his gym back up, and he was telling him to go pound sand. Does anyone remember that story? That guy? Where's that guy today? Because he felt that that he was being controlled and blah blah blah. And then as far as the transportation side too, I mean, if you weren't, there's some states, if you drove into the state and you were out of state person and you didn't have business in that state, they could turn you around until you go back home. Does anybody remember all this stuff? I mean, I'm in the business where I'm going through 2-3 different states, and so I know all this stuff. And then since I'm an essential business, I didn't have a challenge of that, and I never really worried about it. But do you remember how the roads, there was literally little to nobody on the roads. It was so cool. You have no idea back at that time. I was living on the roads. And, oh my gosh, and the speeds people were doing. And the police officers, for the most part, did little to nothing. Because even them, they didn't want to have to trace down a guy and have a guy open the window, coughing and hacking, and get this little to known virus that we couldn't understand yet. So I witnessed people driving by police officers at 100 miles an hour. I'm not lying. I mean, it was a really, in so many ways. I mean, what I was doing and what I got away with back at that time and going across these Route 70s, I mean, it was crazy. It was like a race. It was truly like the poker run. I was surprised somebody didn't do a poker run back at that time. That would have been a great time, actually. But the challenge is, as you know, if you're going through some states, that you're not essential. And that was a concern of mine because February of 2021, I drove up to Pennsylvania to buy my Indian Chieftain Elite Series for my birthday that I found way up there in, I think like Camp, Pennsylvania or something like that. I can't remember. It's Best Line Equipment, Motorsports, great company, great operation, got a great deal. And even for me, back in that time, driving up there, I even have videos of me going up there to get the motorcycle. I was very concerned, would I get pulled in Pennsylvania? Would Pennsylvania State Trooper might come up and say, you're out of state, what are you doing up here? We're still under the pandemic guidelines, and if you're not essential business, then you got to turn around, buddy, and go home. I mean, so I don't know. I really did wonder if that would maybe happen to me going up there because that's how strict it was. So as you progress, and we now witnessed that in the last 3 years,
that I think so many would say you've had little to no control of your monies that you've seen be depleted through the incredible economic surge of everything being so expensive. So I was saying that yesterday in my John Deere video. I don't know if anybody watched my John Deere video, me looking at a John Deere. Do I buy another John Deere? Do I sell a John Deere? I don't know. I'm still just kind of thinking it through. I can go buy the John Deere if I want. That's already deal's been approved and done without even having to sell anything. But I'm just like, I don't know. Just thinking it through. That's how I am. You just kind of see how I go explore things, and do they come to closure at some point? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But the point is, I was saying yesterday that if you make $100,000 4 years ago, there's no way you can tell me you're making $100,000 today. I would say you're making $75,000, and because your income has become littler because of everything being so expensive. It's just me going to that tractor dealership and walking around. It is beyond believable on how the tractor I bought in 2017 for $39,000 today, optioned out the same way, is $63,000. It's actually probably close to 65 because I have the remote rear valve on that tractor and the control in the back where I can move the tractor forward and backward at a very slow speed to attach implements. So that tractor, if you think about it, it's basically $25,000 more than it was just 7 years ago. That's basically close to $4,000 a year increment in pricing. But it didn't happen that way because in 2017 and 2020, the tractors weren't that expensive. It's really more like the 2021, the 2022, the 2023 is where everything went through the roof. And that's why I think that for anybody watching my channel, I would think everybody would have to agree that your income is littler today than it was 3-4 years ago. But I mean, I think it's been the fastest loss of income in probably your lifetime. I understand 10-year increments and how if you're making 100 grand and 10 years from now, it's not the same. But I truly think that anybody here that's in a position that you pretty much have the same income from 2-3 years ago, you would say, yeah, in so many ways, really today I'm making probably 20% less, if not maybe 30% less. All right, and here's the other thing before I kind of wrap it up. Do you feel like you have little to no say in how this governing body of our country just seems to kick the illegal immigration to the curb? That if this city administration now has the highest illegal crossing ever in this country, I think. I mean, I could be wrong, but you're just hearing statistics out there. But it's just like, why? When then you can go through the list of what we now have less of in so many aspects of our life. And as I just said, the money factor, it seems the influence to the governing bodies to realize that us U.S. citizens aren't excited about everybody coming across the border, and now we have to pay for their country's issues. And that's all we're doing. We're just subsidizing other countries' issues that bring them to us, so those other governments don't have to pay for their own, which is so stupid. It's so bad. But nobody talks about this. Nobody figures it out. It's just to really try to handle this in a different way. And in fact, you don't know if this is factual or not, but Gavin Newsom is claiming that he's going to take all the state's money and start using it to pay for illegal immigrants health care or something. Have you heard this? Man. So I think if many people today would have to feel like your vote means little to nothing anymore because these politicians get in office and they just do whatever they want to do. They just do whatever they do, and who cares? Whatever. Suck it up, buttercup. And we even tried to remove some political figures, and even at that, to no avail. Thought they tried to get rid of Gavin Newsom like 2 or 3 years ago. They got rid of Como, whatever that is. But anyways, that's it. I'm going to wrap it up because let's make this a little shorter than yesterday by maybe 3 seconds. I think I did. So everybody have a great day. Stay tuned for the John Deere Adventures. I don't know. Do I do something like that? I don't know. Thinking about it. So, hey, everybody, God bless. Stay safe. Have a great day.